Wolfmaan, and I'm here today at beautiful Mount Nemo Conservation Area, just outside of Hamilton, Ontario. Although there's only about 5 kilometers of trails at the Mount Nemo Conservation Area, and it's a very small conservation area at only a couple of hundred hectares, it packs the absolute most amount of fun and awesomeness in this small area. Today we're going to go take a look at a few different things. There's some caves in the area, there's some old ruins in the area, and most importantly, there's some spectacular views of the countryside that you can't find anywhere else in this area of southern Canada. Along the edge of this trail, we can see evidence that this must have been at one point Homestead, like many areas of the conservation areas of southern Ontario. A big grove of raspberries. Too bad they're not in season, otherwise it'd make for some good eating. Leaving the parking lot, the trail starts to split into a few different directions. Now it goes off in this direction, off into the woods a little bit, or I can continue straight on behind me. Now I want to maximize the amount of biodiversity that I get to go and visit and explore today. So we're going to take the long trail, which heads off in this direction. Most of us, when we end up in the wilderness, we see it full of paths full of bugs and debris and stuff that gets in our eyes and in our ears. But when I come out into these woods, I see so much biodiversity, so much beauty. When I look around, I can identify a good lot of these plants that are around me. Things like burdock and different types of berries, things like wild grapes, wild roses, all sorts of beautiful things that live in this underbrush area that surrounds me. It's quite spectacular to see. Now I just came from this pathway here, and you'll notice as I pan how quickly the forest changes from that dense kind of underbrush, and look at it, it just fades into growth forest. Look at that. You can see that underneath the canopy is taken over, so you don't have as much like small plants and things like that. Look at that. So as that pathway goes down, it completely changes from one kind of forest to another. With the change in the type of forest that we're in and a heavy canopy comes a large gain in moisture in the air. The high moisture of the air ends up making the moss grow on these giant boulders which were left over from the last ice age. This giant rock face that's sitting beside me is actually part of the Canadian Shield. These huge chunks of rock are what was left over when the massive glaciers that were here about 10,000 years ago, they all receded and they pulled away back to where we're going to be heading in just a few minutes. And this is what they left, giant, huge pieces of rock. Now the high humidity in this section of the forest has allowed things like ferns to grow. It's also allowed this beautiful moss to grow all over the rock. But this is such a giant piece of rock sitting out in the middle of the forest. Imagine at one point this would have all been completely under several kilometers worth of ice. I want to give a shout out to the man Roley Phillip. I do appreciate you making note of my videos. If you want to check out his videos, I will put his information right down here at the bottom. There we go. So check him out. He's a really cool guy. He does all sorts of gear reviews and individual reviews, things like that. He's a really great YouTube producer. So I want to give a shout out to him. Thanks very much, my man. Where I'm standing was once the edge of an ancient seashore called the Silurian Sea. These giant chunks of rock, and this drops off probably about 5 or 10 meters below me, used to have waves crashing into them, pulling against this rock and taking it out into what would have been a gorgeous, gorgeous sea. This is the first time since I ended up coming out from the parking lot that I see anything absolutely beautiful like this, but there's more to come. So here all around me are groves of ancient cedar trees. Now these cedar trees don't look very big, maybe only a few centimeters in diameter, but they are very old. Look at the roots on this tree. Look how they've actually grown in and around the rock. They're so small. The reason is the growing conditions here are some of the hardest on the planet for these trees. They have to grow in and around the rocks. They have to wait for things like dirt to blow in from other areas, bird poop to mix on the rocks, anything to give them a little tiny bit of nutrients, a little bit of grab onto these rocks. It's just spectacular to see. Anywhere you have things like limestone and you have water pushing back and forth, you're going to have caves. Right here beside me is a giant fissure entrance, which surely will go into a cave. A lot of the caves in this area have been mapped, but I don't have any of my equipment here today, so maybe we'll come back and visit this another time. This is one of the reasons why I came here today. Look behind me. There's this massive cliff face that's almost half as high as the CN Tower, and out beyond you can see hundreds and hundreds of kilometers of the valley below. The ancient seas which crashed upon the shores of the Niagara Escarpment left giant cave systems. Look at this. It goes way down, probably 10 to 20 meters off. One of the most beautiful parts of this park is the view. You can just look at it behind me. It goes on for hundreds and hundreds of kilometers because today is a beautiful clear day. Sometimes you can even see the city of Toronto from here because we're a little bit north of that. But it is just spectacular. I would encourage anybody who wants to come out and see this beauty to certainly do so. Thank you so much for watching my video. Please consider subscribing. I'm the Wolfman.